Hello. In this video, I'd like to go through the steps in order to get an AV client running on a LiveKit server running on Foundry VTT. Foundry VTT has its own AV client. However, it is known that there are some issues with the current settings where certain people may not be able to hear other people depending on the number of players that you have connected to your server. And this is a self-hosting setup. So that is if you're self-hosting Foundry on a Windows machine specifically. I have tried that setup. It did work fine for a certain amount of players, but as soon as I got over, I think it was 3 or 4 players, I started having issues with some players being able to hear others and other players not being able to hear them. This Foundry module came up recently, and I decided to give it a shot, and I discovered that for somebody who's not quite as good at coding, you might have a little bit of trouble setting this up as a self-hosted server. But there's been a fairly recent addition to the LiveKit source code, which is the LiveKit Cloud, which makes things significantly easier. Now, basically what the steps are is you have to install the LiveKit AV client module that you see on the screen right here to your Foundry. You then have to follow a few steps to get Foundry ready to go. And probably the most difficult one is getting an SSL certificate so that your players can connect through HTTPS. You're also going to need a DNS server. I am using DuckDNS, and I'll be running through that as well. You can see here on the configuration example that they have right on the module description itself that you need certain things for this to work. You need your LiveKit server address. That's why you need a DNS number or address. You need a LiveKit API key, which is going to be generated by the cloud service. And the secret key is also going to be generated by the cloud service. You also need to be able to go into your router and or virus protection software and open certain ports for this to work as well. That's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to explain because everybody obviously potentially have different software and routers, but you do need to be able to do that for this to work. A quick little discussion of some of the hiccups that I ran into trying to get this to work. The instructions are all here, and I'm sure that some people that are much better at understanding code would find this a lot easier to understand. But if you get down to this spot in the description of the module, you'll see that there are some user-created guides for Foundry VTT. Now, I've opened these up on other tabs already, so I'm just going to switch over to the tabs. If you come to this tab, I'm specifically looking at the installing LiveKit on an existing self-hosted Foundry server. If you click on that, it'll bring you to here. And this is where I unfortunately just do not have the confidence and ability, in my opinion, to be able to do this. And I'm sure some of you can, but when I start seeing code like this that I'm supposed to know how to use or at least launch, I tried some of it and I wasn't able to figure it out. A lot of this is for Linux servers as well. There is some information for Windows servers. If you go back to this site here, they do have like a LiveKit getting started. If you go to the LiveKit getting started, they will show you information on how to do this for Windows. But I don't know if I was missing this first line right up here using LiveKit Cloud or if it's a more recent addition. But this is what made it all possible for me, and I think it can make it basically possible for anybody to run this LiveKit server. So this was the shining moment, if you will, the Holy Grail. So if you click on sign up to get a cloud account, it's going to bring you to a site where you can log in. Now, I've already logged in a couple of times, so I'm getting a little bit of a different setup here. this is probably what it'll look like when you go to the LiveKit Cloud website. And you can see right here that it says getting started for free. There are pricing plans, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. You might need those. But if you click on getting started for free, it'll bring you back to this login. I'm just going to quickly log in and show you what it looks like. So once you've logged in, it'll ask you to read the terms of service. And if you click on continue, you're going to want to give your app a name. So I called it Foundry AV server. And then it's going to ask you for your domain right away. Now, this is the domain for the LiveKit server, not the domain for your Foundry server. You can see here that it's got a .livekit.cloud. So you can call this whatever you want. So I'm just going to call it Foundry VTT AV, and it'll be .livekit.cloud. And then I'll click on continue. So it's going to go through some of these miscellaneous questions here. It's just me. You can choose whatever you want. Video conferencing is what I'm interested in. I'm not switching over, or I'll say yes, I guess. Actually, I'm not, so I'm saying no. Let's say ease of use for this one, and I'll click on finish. And now you're in the LiveKit Cloud area where you can actually start your sessions and stuff. What you're going to want to do here, if you go back to Foundry, you need to have these things, the LiveKit API key and the secret key, in order to run the LiveKit server in Foundry. So what you can do is you can go to settings and you can say add new key. You can give this key a name and generate it. And now you have the information you need. Now I'll be deleting these immediately after I'm done the video, but you can see that I now have the API key and the secret key. And if you go back to LiveKit AV client, API key and secret key is what you need to run this. One of the biggest mistakes I made at first is I thought you needed an individual one of these for every client, therefore every player and GM that was connecting to your system, but it doesn't seem to need that. And if somebody knows better than me, if I'm right on that, you can add it in the comments. But as far as I know, you only need one. So now I have that, and you can generate your token by pressing on here. And if you click on generate, you'll have your token. Again, I'm going to be deleting this very soon. And you're going to need this. So you're going to probably want to copy and paste it, which I'll do right now. So I'm just going to paste that in Notepad and have that handy for later. What this basically replaces is the need to run all of the code to generate these things for your computer using either a command prompt or a Linux server to generate all of that information. So the LiveKit Cloud allows you to do that. Now, there is a limit to the bandwidth that you get. It is limited to 50 gigabytes a month at the moment. I have found that running 6 players for 3 hours used just about 1 gigabyte, but none of us were using video. So I don't know what it would be like with all of us using video. My guess is it might be a little bit closer to 20 perhaps gigabytes, depending. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but you could give it a try. There are pricing structures. If you go to billing here, it'll tell you, actually, I'm not sure if it's here. Let's try upgrade. Yeah, so right here, you can see that it's 18 cents per gigabyte after included 50 gigabytes of data transfer, 0.02 or 2 cents per minute after included 60 minutes transcoding. So, but that's the free information here, and I found that that was more than good enough for what we were doing. One thing you're going to need from the LiveKit Cloud is your URL, and you can find that under settings, project, and you can see right here that the URL is foundryvttav.livekit.cloud, so I'm going to add that to the notepad as well. The next thing you're going to want is a DNS that points to the address of your server on your computer. Now, they suggest DuckDNS. It is free. This is what I've used, so I'll show you with this, but there are other DNS providers out there that you can use instead. So I'm going to sign in here and I'll show you what it looks like. Once you've logged in and clicked on the reCAPTCHA, it'll bring you to this website, and it's telling you your token here, which you will need. You will also now have to type in a name for your domain. So I'm just going to call it Foundry AV and say add domain. And it is going to tell me my updated IP here. Now I am using NordVPN, so this is not my actual IP address, but I now have that subdomain. So it says foundryav.duckdns.org added to your account. So what you're going to need now is, if you use DuckDNS, you actually have to install the DuckDNS software. So because I'm on Windows, I would choose the Windows GUI or whichever one you want, and you can then download that. You have to select which domain you want here, and so you download and install the software, and you just run the software. Basically, it'll just put a little in the taskbar, a little piece of software that if your DuckDNS settings change, it just keeps it so that it's linked to the original one. So I'm not sure why that's needed for DuckDNS, to tell you the truth, but it is required for it to run as far as I know. So now I have my domain, and I'm going to add that to my notepad just so that I have the address of that domain, because you're going to need it. So now I have the token, the address for my DNS, as well as the address for my LiveKit Cloud, and I'm ready to go to the next step. This ended up being the most difficult part for me, which was getting an SSL certificate. In some of the reading I was doing, this Certbot software is probably the easiest way to do so. I'm going to be running Certbot automatically to get free HTTPS certificates forever, so I'm going to click on Get Certbot Instructions right here. The software I'm using is Other because it is not in that list. I'm on Windows, so I'm going to pick Windows. If I can find it right there. And then it's going to say you're going to have to be comfortable with the command line to be able to do this. You're going to have some ports open to be able to do this. So I can't go through all of that information. I'm hoping you do understand how to open ports. You have to do so in your antivirus and your router. So it tells you here that you're going to need to download Certbot. So you can see right here, there's a URL to download the software. Once you've downloaded the software and installed it, you'll be able to follow the rest of the instructions here, which basically say to enter the command prompt and to run as administrator. So I'll do that right now. Run as administrator. And we now have our box here. And what we want to do is we want to run the command certbot cert only standalone. So as you can see here, it's as soon as you type in cert only standalone, I just copied and pasted that. It's going to ask you what is the domain name you would like on your certificate. So this is the domain for the DuckDNS that we did. So I'm going to go back to my notepad here and select that domain, copy it and paste it, and then press enter. So it says it's requesting certificate for that domain. And this is where if you don't have your ports set up properly, it may not work. So right now it's saying that some things have failed here, so I'll have to check why, and I'll get back to you. All right, I think I figured out what went wrong. You can see now that I've actually got a successful creation of my two files that I'm going to need. These are the two files right here. So there's one called fullchain.pam and the other one is called privatekey.pam. And you can see where they're saved in your file structure. What I had done wrong is because I'm using a different DuckDNS server to show you what's going on, I had to go into my DuckDNS settings. This is the app that I was telling you that you're going to have to install from DuckDNS. And in here, you put the name of your domain for DuckDNS and then the token number that you have right here for your domain. And as soon as I did that and let it update, what it does is it basically connects and it makes sure your IP address is correct. Then it worked. So it must have been just that was going on. Now going back to Foundry home screen on the web, if you click on the menu and go to knowledge base, you can either type in AV or look for it. And it'll talk about the audio chat integration. And this is where it tells you about needing the SSL certificate for this to work, and it explains how to get it. Right here in this audio visual or audio video section, if you click on SSL and HTTPS, it'll bring you to the site that talks about having to do some port forwarding, how to configure SSL, needing your PEM and key files, the difference between a CA signed certificate, which Certbot gives, and they talk about the Let's Encrypt website here, which is where the Certbot is found. And then you can also go to the hosting guide to get some more information. Under the generating an SSL cert using Certbot Windows 10 or 11, again, I'm using Windows. These instructions basically can be followed. I've already done the Certbot part. I've talked to you about the two files that were generated, the full chain and the priv key files. You're going to want to place those in the config folder located inside your Foundry VTT user data folder. The easiest way to get that is if you launch Foundry, you can't see my taskbar, but where the Foundry icon is on the taskbar, if you right click on that and go to browse user data and then go to config, you can see that I've already copied those files. And just to show you what those files look like, because it's a little weird, if you go to the Certbot on your C drive and double click on live, under there you find the folder for whichever domain that you've just registered, and you can see here that there is the fullchain.pem and the privatekey.pem. Now these look like shortcuts, but when I copied and pasted them over to my Foundry file, they copied fully over. So you can see them here, the full chain one and the priv key. So then you're just going to continue following the instructions on the Foundry website, and you're going to launch Foundry VTT from the setup menu. You're going to click on the configuration tab and make sure that port 443 and your certificate and priv key information is in there. So I can show you where that is. So after you've launched Foundry, if you click on the configuration tab, you'll see right here that you have to change the port to 443. This is going to require you to open that port in both your virus scanner software, or specifically your firewall software, and your router as well. And this is where you put the names of the two files right here, SSL certificates and private key certificate. And once you save that configuration, you can go to the next step. If you haven't already, you're going to want to go install the LiveKit package. So if you go to your modules, type in live, you'll see that I already have mine installed. So you install the LiveKit package. Then you're going to go to your world, and I'll do that and I'll show you what to do next. So I'm in my test world here. If you go up to your module settings, so game settings, and then manage modules, you're going to want to find the LiveKit module. So if I type in live, there it is. I'm going to activate it, save module settings. That should refresh that world. Now if you go back to your settings and go to configure settings for your AV, so it is part of your core now. If you click on configure audio video, you will see here that I have this LiveKit tab up here. If you click on that, you just make sure that that's all set up. If you go to server, this is where you put your LiveKit server address. So you can actually choose, if you have the Tavern Patreon, you can use their own LiveKit stuff, but I'm using custom. So the LiveKit server address, if I go back to my notepad, my LiveKit server address is this one. So I'm going to copy and paste that, oops, here. And then you need the API key and the secret key from the LiveKit Cloud website. So I'll go get those. So here I am at the LiveKit Cloud. If you click on your dashboard, this is just your regular startup screen. If you go to settings, you can see the Foundry AV token that I generated. So I'm just going to click on that name. There's the API key. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it right here. And then for the LiveKit secret, I'll go back to the cloud. And that is that big key that I had put in the notepad. So I'm going to go get that. I'll copy that, put it here, save changes, and now hopefully if I reboot, let's see what happens. Just give me a second here. Forgot one thing. I have to enable audio and video and save changes, and now it's going to reload. And you can now see that I have my icon here, and the video will be starting up there. Now it's saying it could not establish signal connection. I'm thinking that's because I actually don't have the correct keys set up, because sorry, that's in the regular configuration here. So let me return to setup. I'm running the LiveKit server on another server, so I don't want to disable that because it's going to take me too long to reset it up. But yeah, if you go to configuration here, like these two are not pointed to the right thing, and that's why it's having trouble connecting. But if you did it to your own DNSs, everything should be working fine. If you've got everything working properly, this is what the layout should look like. And you can adjust this layout. Now, there's a few things that you should probably be ready to tell your players. The first thing is, if you look down here, this is where the configuration tab is, or the configuration settings are for the AV stuff. If you click on that, every person is going to get this little pop-up that's going to come up. And you want to make sure that your audio and video is enabled. And one thing that I got my players to immediately change as well is voice broadcasting mode is set to push to talk originally. I believe the tilde is the button for push to talk, but I like to have voice broadcasting mode always enabled. And because it's on push to talk when you first launch this, some people might think that they can't be heard. So you want to change that immediately, at least for testing purposes, and then they can change it back later if they want. There's a few things that you can alternate between the different names that are going to appear. So right now you can see it says GM here, but I have it alternating between that and the actual name. You can adjust some of those things if you go down here and right click on the user names and go to user configuration. You can do things like change the player avatar and I'll show you why you might want to do that. If you reduce the size of the dock, it goes down to a player avatar instead of the video. So if you don't do that, it'll just be the default ghost face, for lack of a better description, in Foundry. But I had most of my players wanted to use their own player avatars, and I made one for myself here. So that's a couple of things you might want to know. You can also change where the dock is. So you can do that with the dock position here. Right now it's set to the left, but we can make it go to the bottom if you save changes all of a sudden. I found at the bottom you have a lot more room to actually see, so depending on how many players you have, you may have to scroll up and down if it's on the left to be able to see all the video. But if you have it on the bottom like this, you don't have to. And clearly the configuration settings are way over to the right. You can't even see them on my screen right now. But I'll just put it back to the left here and save those changes. So that's basically it, folks. Hopefully that has explained everything and maybe save you some time and effort in setting up the LiveKit server. Let me know in the messages or in the comment sections if you're having trouble, and I'll see if I can help you. I'm by no means an expert, but I just thought I would share my experience with you and maybe help a few of you get this working.